Hi everybody, this is Dom and welcome to Raising the Barber. In today's podcast we have Ryan Bentley, who's a music producer. In his experience and his journey in London, he's been always surrounded by great artists and he now decided to have his own business. We will talk about how music has changed and what's the new technology that drives music the way it is and makes music as specialized as it is now. Don't forget to like and subscribe, stick with us and let's go.
Yo, listen to this, it's Raising the Barber, hot dip, talk shop, no ribbon.
A question, from London?
No, I was born in Liverpool, but grew up in Shropshire, so like West Midlands. Moved to London because it's where the industry's at, you know. It's where I envisioned being straight after university. So.
And this is something that you would thought when you were like finishing university, to move to London?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was just out of everywhere in the UK, it's London's the place to be. You know, it's music's what I do, and this is where most clients are, most opportunities. There's obviously other places in the UK like Manchester and everything, but London's the one.
Mainly London.
Yeah.
Why in a way you've chosen music then?
I think when I was younger, I was always really, really interested in music. I always did like sounds, you know, the ADHD side of me would be constantly just having like, I guess, musical tics sometimes.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I kind of love music. I really loved when I was turned 16 and got into my teens, I really loved old music. So like I'll go back to the kind of 50s and 60s, but then I never really listened to pop music at that time. And I got into film music, and that world that bridged into music for image, and that combination of, I guess, the creative arts and music transcended itself when it became part of something bigger. And I really felt something in it where you didn't need lyrics, you didn't need vocals to portray a message, an emotion. It was, instead of locking myself in a room, and although I did do this, lock myself in a room and listen to Green Day, I would lock myself in a room and listen to the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, you know, something that would take me into other worlds.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the thing I wanted to ask you is like, you now work mostly for TV and let's say cinema, and now have you got any projects right now that you're working at?
Yeah, I've got, I do the film and TV stuff as my sort of core business. Got something on at the moment, which is hopefully, you know, sort of pitching for tracks to land on Love Island and try and get things on there. But I'm also working with some friends of mine on projects that they might have, and, you know, artist-led things, because I'm in both worlds, where it's that sort of commercial singer-songwriter world and also film and TV.
And so you started first with, let's say, commercial music, let's say with artists, with singers.
Yeah.
And rather than, have you started around there? Have you started anywhere else in London? Which is the place that you consider as in London as like, you know, the heart of your music?
Yeah. London's huge, right? And the heart of music has pockets. Where we are here was huge for years, music-wise, and there's still lots of creative people here. And I got a job around here in Psalm Studios, which was just at the top of Portobello Road on Basing Street, and then it moved to Ladbroke Grove and became Psalm Music Village. I think both places might be closed down now, but if anyone's into their music and they look back into history, they'll see that, you know, it's got such a huge legacy there. And I think West London was very much the heart of music in London when you go back into the 80s. So you had the big major record labels as well. Universal was on High Street Kensington. Warner may still be there. Sony was that way as well, but they've all moved now to King's Cross area. So like kind of central.
Surprisingly.
Yeah. I think the reason was because obviously there's loads of people from all over the UK and also abroad that when they land in London, they seem to land either in King's Cross, Euston area. So it just kind of became...
so music in a way has transformed also in the way of the speed of that. You can imagine that probably like about 40 years ago, it wasn't, not even, probably 20 years ago, it was impossible to think about releasing like an album in a week, something like
that.
You know, probably instruments as well, where the proper instruments were used then.
Yeah, there's been, I mean, going into the history of music and music recording, there's a huge shift. Used to be, you would have, maybe the talent was a singer or even in some cases they, you know, and this sometimes hasn't changed, but it's just a face or a group. And you would have these underground people that were the songwriters. Now that still exists, and you know, in the pop world, there's still loads of like ghostwriters and people that are not artists in their own right. They're not producers, but they just write songs, and you know, they're making their money from that. But at the core of it, the way that music was recorded and the way that music was released was very much very, very, very talented people with very, very limited resources to manipulate. We started off a very analog, right? You would literally scream into a horn that would etch literal vibrations into its cylinder disc. And now we've gotten into this place where in this digital world where anyone can do anything from a bedroom, they just record straight into a computer. It's all zeros and ones, and they can just repeat the line, play the part over and over again until it's perfect. And that's kind of a luxury, and it's created a new wave of music that we can create these days. But it's also very different in, you know, where the talent was versus where it is now. I think there was a shift, maybe during a certain period when the music industry was failing a little bit because of the lack of CD buys and all that kind of stuff, and it turned into DSPs. There was a bit of a shift as it went very digital, and you didn't need to be as good at your instrument as you used to be, and you could fake it a little bit. But I think now more and more people, and the way that people are being reached through like TikTok, you know, all the sort of streaming services, whether that's, you know, Spotify or whether you're going into Instagram and social media, you very much are the manager. You are going direct to the audience. So you need to be good.
You need to be good, but at the same time, I believe you still have to create your own brand, your own character, right?
Yeah.
Whilst maybe before it was kind of different. I think probably making music.
Yeah.
Back then, you had to be very good.
Yeah.
In order to sign a contract, right, as well.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of So back then, I would say your sole focus was being, either an artist, a songwriter, a musician, and that's how you kind of broke into the industry. You would have people in their roles in the business that were A&R who would pretty much go on, these people are great, they sound great, they look great, they've got something that, you know, the world hasn't seen yet. And those A&R people who were very good at their job knew who was going to sort of make it and do very well. Obviously, people will be missed, people are always missed, but that was the sort of balance. Someone who could talent scout and someone who was the talent.
You don't follow music, you choose music. So how when was your first time you realized you were like, okay, yeah, this is my passion. I want to literally make it as a job.
Yeah.
you said you went to university, right?
Yeah.
And after university, how was your first job? How was your the first approach to proper in a studio?
Yeah. So that was moved to London. This is where the industry is. Let's get out there. Let's do as much as possible. There was a lot of kind of cold outreaches, speaking to studios, speaking to anyone that I already knew that was in the industry. But you just have to put yourself out there. And I got into a few kind of work experience things, little internships. Then I got myself a little job in a studio where it was ad hoc stuff, part-time things. But it was more the work experience where I was going into these bigger studios that was having the big clients. That was the one that I met people that I could sort of not necessarily rely on, but they could vouch for me when other opportunities arose. So I went into Moloko Studios, which they're a huge sort of studio owning management company, massive in London, but they're also global. They ran a work experience thing. They probably still do, to be honest, but I went there, just showed unbelievable willingness, and really tried my best to kind of prove that I was willing to learn and that I had the right attitude, because it's a lot about attitude rather than skill at that point.
Really?
Because you've got to prove that you can sit in that environment and not be over the top with big star artists. It's very much
comfortable with everybody.
Yeah, you've got to give them the right space and respect. You can't overtake the environment by being a fan person, and you're there literally to just listen, make cups of tea and coffee and, learn as much as you can. You're not there going, I think you should change that to an A major or a C, whatever. It's
in a way, I wouldn't say the word, I was about to say contemplate, but not really. In a way, participate to a big project, to the success of someone else, by just being yourself, not putting too much of yourself, right?
Exactly. And there's lots of really terrible jobs that you have to do quite often, and it's not being not putting up barriers to that, going, yeah, I get it. This is how everyone learns. This is how we do it. And going through those motions really set me up to get all the jobs after that. And university was one thing that sort of gave me time and skills to do certain stuff. But it was the work experience and it was the attitude that I showed that got me into the next jobs.
Have you found, for example, probably I can imagine that in uni you were studying, you were learning, probably practicing as well.
Yeah.
But when you get into a studio, what's the emotion that you feel? What was the first emotion that you felt back then?
It's a good question. I think it's a good question because it's so long ago. Probably nerves. I think you get a bit starstruck first. When you walk into a big, impressive studio, I did when I first got the job at SARM. One of the things I should mention on that is actually failure. I tried to get into SARM, failed, kept at it. The year after, managed to get in again. And it was through, sort of experiences that I'd done, people that I'd met along the way who then vouched for me to get that job again. So it's invaluable, the people you meet, and it's, and it can be daunting. But I think if you're smart, and if you've got the right head on you, you'll learn quickly how you need to behave. One of the things I was basically told was just constantly listen. And that kind of helps not only musically and, skill-wise, but it's also listen to what potentially the producer needs or the engineer needs or the artist needs and sort of anticipate that it's coming. Studio time is precious. It's, expensive. People are there to focus on being creative and they don't want to get stuck by technical issues or, something not working or the fact that they're even just thirsty or hungry. So you just got into this mode of it's a service industry. and you just got to constantly listen. It's like, oh, it sounds like they're going to need the guitar or the drum setup. I'll go get all those mics that I know that they're going to use. I'll go get that amp because I know it's their favorite. You sort of really learn the clients and the engineers you're working with and the producers you're working with.
So like trying to be like, to go with the flow, to be smooth.
Yeah, exactly.
To make sure that every second matters.
Yeah.
It's part of the music industry still nowadays.
Yeah, I think so. I would say studios have gotten smaller. Some of the big ones have closed. The ones that I used to work at will have closed now because there's limited sort of like need for certain things. People used to, and also the money's changed, the fact that people aren't buying music anymore. But you used to rent out a studio for like a month and you would write and then you would record the record. Whereas nowadays it's like, I'll book out the studio for half a day and get vocals down. So the opportunities are still there, and there are some really cool studios out there still. But yeah, it's a completely different world to what it would have been 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
And you now are in a completely different world again, because you are basically in something that is very far from what we perceive as a music, as mainstream music. Yeah. Because you're working with a part of the music is still like not really in the center. You know what I mean? It's some people are much in love with film music and kind of like only instrumental music. What was your approach at first to this new way of making music?
I guess what happened with me is I was in that commercial world. I was working, as an engineer, as a producer. I was working with these commercial artists and singer-songwriters, and I still do that. But I really wanted to try and get into music for image, music for film, TV, whatever that might be. But I also wanted to see more what the business end was. So I kind of first left the job at SARM, went freelance, tried that for a bit. Then I got a job at Universal Music. And that was, again, I kind of needed to start again. So I'd had producer credits with commercial artists working for Virgin EMI and whatever it might be. But I had to start again to get into the business end, because it was even little things like, HR being HR and saying, we don't know whether you can work in an office. We don't know whether you can use Microsoft Excel and all that kind of stuff, which of course.
So you had to prove yourself.
I had to prove myself once again.
What age?
Yeah. God, what was I? I think I was probably like 26 at that point. Maybe older, can't remember. But I had to start again. And again, what I did was I got work experience again. I got work experience at Decca in Universal. And they really liked me and I really liked them. And I think what I did with them at the time was they were like, if you want a job in this particular area, I'm sure we'd be able to find something and sort of get you in there. And it was their sort of commercial radio side where you'd be plugging to a lot of radios. And as nice as that was, it wasn't really what I was interested in. So I said to them, I'll do odd jobs for you. I'll do whatever needs be until we find the sort of role that works for me. I was trying to get into A&R a bit, but then I was introduced to this world called production music, which is in a very cruel way, in a very not very nice way of describing it. It's like stock music, stock library of imagine going to iStock for photos. You're essentially doing that for music. And that sort of gave me this world where I could be a producer, where I was creative, be in business where I had to do all the sort of A&R side and kind of initiatives where you're thinking about more marketing things. I was also looking after studios, so I was engineering in the studios there. And I just sort of managed to create this job and work in this area that covered all the different areas that I was really interested in. And it is different. It is very much like I'm not working with an artist who's trying to be a commercial success and trying to be, signed to X, Y, and Z label. This was very much for a purpose. The music had a brief and we compose it and it lands on these types of, films or TV.
So you are basically, there's less pressure in terms of like trying to make things as good as possible to hope for the future of artists. It's mostly like, okay, we know that we have this job.
Yeah.
We need to make it as good as possible always.
Yeah.
But is already set in a way. Probably reputation is more important than anything else.
Yeah.
Because whether you have an artist sitting on a chair asking for help to make good music, or just a rookie who wants to make some random beats, is a thing.
Yeah.
But when it's about films and TV, you have a reputation. It matters a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think it's like the best way I can describe it is when you're an artist, you are trying to, more often than not, give the world something that is a part of you.
Yeah.
And you're putting your heart, your soul, and your emotion into the music. And it's very much yours and your craft. And obviously you have to try and make it sellable and work for people. But the world that I'm in now is a little bit of that, but what you do has a function and a purpose. So you're doing it for something bigger than yourself, which allows you to kind of step away from it a little and not be so worried that, I don't know, one, it might not be your most sort of like creative, but maybe it doesn't need to be creative. Maybe it needs to be functional over something that's like super beautiful and musical. It's just got to work for whatever's on the image. So it has purpose, which I really like. And that really helped. It really helped focus me. And I think it's a really good way for anyone who's creative and anyone who's really into music and loves writing. I think it's a really good way for them to earn money because it's something you can do in the background. You don't have to be selling your artist profile for that. You're a composer. You're getting paid to do a job on something. And if you need a creative outlet, it's such a good one. And then on the side, do your artist project.
It's something that I always thought about. Lately I'm focusing myself more and more on, rather than listening to music, but watching films and try to feel, the emotions that some tracks are giving. And one of the films that I've never seen, and now my Italian friend is going to say, well, I've never seen it. And then I watched it because of a French guy said to me, oh, you have to watch this one. It's very important. It's called Nuovo Cinema Paradiso, which is, I think, one of the best films ever. And it has one of the tracks that is just super emotional.
Yeah.
From then on, I realized how music is important to people, and how an artist and our whole team can make you like literally without even seeing the film feel emotions.
It's powerful. It's the beauty of storytelling, and somehow we're connected, right? We're connected in our emotions to music. And we don't have to hear those lyrics because there might not be any, True. There is something about whatever's happening with the melody that's chosen, the harmonics, the timbre of the instruments. A good example is when a musician gets a sheet of music and there's all the dots of what they should be playing.
Yeah.
they'll read it and they could play it, and if they don't pour any sort of themselves into it, it's just robotic. It's just literally just da 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 da, rather than da 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 da, which is something I've influenced into the music. So that, it is very simple form, is kind of what movie music's doing. It's creating this mood and this ambience for you to feel something, without sort of having to sing words that connect with you. It's connecting, I think, way more powerful. It does with me anyway. It wasn't until I would say in my mid-20s that I started to actually listen to lyrics.
Yeah.
I worked in a pop studio, so I kind of had to learn quickly. But before then I was listening to the melody of the lyrics and the sort of harmonies that were happening around it, and the beats were very primal as well. So like rhythm plays a huge part.
Do you play any instrument?
I used to play drums. So
Wow.
Rhythm, when it comes to whether that's kind of melody, chords, or anything like that, I'm much stronger at than I would say any of the sort of harmonics and actual toned music, tuned music, I should say.
That's lovely. It's you said you worked for a label back then, or you worked in a studio. Have you had any chance? I don't know. Have you met any artists that we know?
Yeah, I mean, when I worked at Psalm, it was for Trevor Horn. He owned it. His whole background, if anyone knows him or doesn't know him, is he's kind of coined us the sound of the 80s. He was in the Buggles. He was the sort of lead singer and songwriter for that. He got success in that. I think one of their things was like the first video to be shown on MTV was
Video Killed
the Radio Star. Yeah.
Video Killed it? No, I can't remember. Wow,
Yeah, Video Killed the Radio Star. Yeah. And you can see, if anyone's into film music as well, Hans Zimmer was in the band because he was the guy with all the synths. And he's just a shifty guy playing synthesizers in the background.
Was it Video Killed the Radio?
Video Killed,
You got unbelievable. It was the first video ever
on MTV. Yeah, it makes sense, right? I mean, it made a statement. Yeah,
the most successful statement ever. To be honest.
And then he did like Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Seal, all those, Grace Jones, all that kind of stuff. So when I got the job at Psalm, he was working on Seal's 7th album at that point. So I was assistant running around with that. And then there were just loads of people coming in and out. They did the recent when I was there, Band-Aid. So pretty much every, musician that was artist who was an artist at the time came there. Like One Direction and, people who were big at the time, I suppose. And then I met Jake Bugg when I was there, and he'd had quite good success with his first 2 albums. And I'd met him, was working with him, and then when I left and went freelance, I carried on working with him and did his 3rd album with him. So I kind of like helped produce that. He was producing, composing, and writing all himself, but I was the sort of main help, I suppose, and that helped me get onto the next sort of gigs and everything. There are a few people from Virgin EMI that they were trying out that I helped, try and make success with. And then I did a few odd jobs here and there. I got to work with like the Black Eyed Peas.
No, really.
Yeah, Nicole Scherzinger was working with them at the time as well, and it was nice. But again, I'd been a producer at that point, but I'd just taken this gig as like an assistant engineer, so it kind of didn't matter where I was. I think I needed to still kind of show up and be willing to do the smaller jobs, I suppose.
True.
And then I got into Universal. And did all that and tried to make my way in there, and ended up helping them before I left set up a label with Harry Gregson Williams, who's again another big film composer. He worked under Hans Zimmer at one point as well. And now I'm out there on my own again, so trying to make it work for myself again.
Is it like more challenging? Is it? I imagine you have many connections now.
Yeah,
you've been working in the field for quite a long time. Is it challenging in some days?
It is challenging, but I would say you either enjoy working for a regular paycheck, a company, maybe something a bit more corporate, or you enjoy being freelance, working for yourself. I'm not sure many people can cross both worlds. I did, and corporate was very difficult for me. Universal, at the end of the day, it's a big music label, but it's huge, and that makes it corporate, right?
It's like tomorrow. Let's say tomorrow, I wouldn't say a name. I'd say Bruno Mars. Okay? I like him. That's fine. Tomorrow, Bruno Mars, who is signed with someone, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Says, I want to be indie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not comparing myself to Bruno Mars.
I'm saying this because, it's like saying goodbye forever to all the perks, all the advantages that involve being.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. You have the weight of a mega power behind you when you're in something like that. But I'm very much like, I found my little niche. I enjoy a specific world of the music industry. I've tried, to be just an engineer. I've tried to be just a producer, maybe just doing mixing, just doing mastering, whatever it might be. And I've done all these different jobs in these different worlds. And now working in sync, working in this sort of small little world, for me, works really well. And because of the type of character I am, where I like to do everything myself, whether that's kind of creating a business myself, whether I'm doing artwork, doing my own account. Of course, I outsource and try and get help and have as much help and collaboration as possible. But when you're doing it for someone else, and the way that I work is I pour my heart and soul into everything, and I pour every waking hour into it. At the end of the day, when I leave at the end of the night, or if I leave the job in 10 years, whatever it might be, it's not mine anymore. And I just felt there was a time where it was like, I need to go out and do it myself now, because... I
understand what you mean.
Yeah.
So let's say you want to be paid the royalties. No, I'm joking. But I think this is a proper thing. When you start something on your own and you work with someone else, the difference is that you really want to make sure that the things are, perceived as something that you've made for yourself, for the people. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we live one life.
Yeah.
If we keep living for someone else, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
That's what I believe, and especially if it's a passion.
Yeah.
Because if tomorrow you were not a music producer, you do something else, right?
Yeah.
And you were working in a corporate, in finance, whatever. You knew that your life would have been like bond with a big company.
Yeah.
But when you have a passion, is creative. It has a lot to do with your emotions.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like good for your soul.
Yeah.
To keep doing it.
It really works for some people. It's not my natural state. I think mentally I struggle quite a lot with it.
How long it took for you? How long did it take to get to this point?
Well, I tried all those different areas. Then I got into Universal, and that was probably about 11 years of my career. And then I went off and decided to do it on my own. But I was definitely definitely in such a good position to do that. I had the contacts, and also you learn a lot when you're in a corporate business. There are just things that they know how to do, and you're in an environment where even if they're not teaching you something, they're giving you the platform to learn, right? But of course, there's loads of people to learn from there, and there's loads. You're collaborating constantly all day. Yeah,
So it was a good school. It was a good training camp.
Yeah, so great, and I wouldn't change it. It was a very. It's not amicable. They didn't want me to leave. I wanted to leave.
Oh, really?
It was very much like they were happy for me. If I wanted to make that choice, they weren't like, "F you, get out the door," right? They were very much like, "We'll support you on this."
Next question.
Yeah.
This came up in my mind. I have many clients said to me, "Man, I'm in between jobs. I need to wait like 3 months, 6 months before I start doing anything, or I need to work like miles away from that place I was working, because otherwise there's a like interest conflict and something like that." You have anything like similar? Have you had anything like that anybody in your career said to you before you start a new job, before you want to work up for your own, you have to wait? Because I mean, work this way as well.
I would say, because luckily a lot of the work I was doing in Universal wasn't exclusive. So a lot of the composers say that we were working with are not exclusive. So they work for all these different labels. So anything that I'm doing with them, or in that sort of similar circles, that sort of already exists anyway. So I'm not breaking any, I guess, laws or whatever there. But of course there is. At the end of the day, even when it's a big corporate business, sometimes it is a little bit personal, and sometimes you shouldn't be crossing over lines.
Sure.
But that's also, in my opinion, part of the trap, because you can't. If you're constantly being told like you shouldn't yet, or you're not allowed to if you leave, you get into this environment that if you do want to leave, you never can, right? So if you really want to, and you're being blocked because your work is more exclusive, whatever that might be, weigh up the risks, weigh up whether you can sort of wait it out for the 6 months or the year without doing any work in that area. And it's the same for me. Like Universal are not one of my clients right now, because we've got to have a bit of a gap, a bit of a bridge between us, and they've got to protect themselves as well, right? So this isn't the case for everyone, but in some scenarios, you can imagine if someone was to work there, see me leave, and then get work from them. It's kind of like there's no incentive for anyone to stay, because they could just leave and get work. So I understand why you wouldn't do that.
I see.
But yeah, it's very much like you've got to weigh up those risks. And just like when I was talking about at the start about doing the work experience, none of this stuff is paid. So a lot of that is about the support of my family, the support of my friends. My family aren't rich, but they will bend over backwards to help me. I'm, so unbelievably lucky for that. But I had friends who managed to have like a place that their dad owned in London somewhere, so I could stay somewhere for cheap. There's a lot of like just grafting and being at the mercy of your loved ones, and without that support, I'm not sure I could have made it.
So family again is very important for your development. And the question is, as you said, you didn't really get any financial help, and so it looks like that music was the only big thing for you. You were like investing everything in that, and the family believed into that. Have you had during your career any moment that you were like, I'm done. I want to have a stable job. I want to have something that, gives me peace and
Yeah, I've had many moments where I felt like it was over, I felt like I couldn't go on. Did it lead to getting a stable job? No. Besides Universal, which was a stable job, but it was there was nothing in me that would drive me. I would happily die starving. No, the problem is that I would just like run home, right? If I really got into a bad state, I always knew I could just sort of go home, restart, refresh, go and live with my family. But I also saw that as that could potentially lead to the end of my career, because I'm stepping out of London, and to get into London was really, really difficult. I had to have the financial help of my friend's mum. She was really great. She gave me loans to get in that I was able to pay back to her. But without that, I wouldn't have been able to move. So yeah, there were just so many environments. There was moments where I was, applying for cafe jobs, but they could tell I didn't want the cafe job. And to be honest, I actually did want the cafe job, not because I needed the money, but I enjoy cafes, so I kind of wanted to see what it was like.
It doesn't look like the same. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but there was just everything that I did was about being somewhere in music, and it was without fail, I've got to make it work. And actually, you get quite good at finances. You get quite good at, I'm not recommending this to anyone, but you get quite good at figuring out what loans are like and what credit cards are like and how to use the system where you're not, completely jeopardizing your future by bankrupting yourself, but you're able to use debt to your advantage to get you through tight spots. That plus a few crying down the phone to your slightly wealthier brother every now and again, but he gave me nothing because he would just shout at me. So again, that you learn from that, because he'd be like, you can't fall back on people, you've got to make it. So it pushes you.
I feel you. I'm telling you. It's very, when you move, it doesn't really matter. That's the beauty of London, because it doesn't really matter of people probably. Where you're from, because you said you're not from London, but you're English, right?
Yeah.
This city gives you enough will and strength to make it, no matter what, no matter where you're from. That's what I love about the city. And how do you feel your future is going to be? Or do you think you're going to stay here still? You're going to move anywhere else? Or have you got any place in mind for your future? I
think now, because of the little niche that I've gotten myself into, it's very much, I don't need to be, as long as this carries on working, I actually don't need to be in London. The choice is, I'm staying because I like it. But that, in a small way, what that's sort of saying is that, well, I don't need to be super central London to get to that job because I'm working from home now. I could be outside of London or on the outskirts of London. There's very much like the world's my oyster in that sense. I would like to, if financially it all works out, to have a few places in different parts of the world, but I think, I want to be where I'm happy. I have friends around me. I have family close. It's not driven now by where the industry is, because the industry, that sounds arrogant. I was going to say the industry comes to me. The industry's on your laptop, right? It's online. So there's the odd occasion where I might need to go to a studio, but you travel. You do that for a day, you do it for a week, whatever you need. But the rest of the time I can be wherever.
That makes sense.
Which I feel really lucky about, because if I carried on my trajectory in commercial studios and working with artists, I would 100% need to commit to being somewhere like London or LA, places that are the hubs of where these operations happen.
Is LA still big? Now you're working for TV and movies as well, right?
Yeah.
You know that London is becoming big, huge in films. Is LA still a good competitor?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say if we're talking films, most composers probably have something here and something over there, because it's they've kind of got two different uses. LA, I think maybe they've made the choice because it's such a, I mean, it's Hollywood. So
it's still Hollywood.
It's still Hollywood. So the choice is, they've all collectively made a choice that Hollywood will remain Hollywood. And then here they have the opportunity of using some world-class musicians in some world-class studios with some world-class engineers. Of course, great people exist in LA for that, but you're driven, I think, by project there and where things are.
So let's say you could work from home, but still artists move to make music.
Yeah.
It looks like nowadays, I was thinking about this last time. One of my clients works in the studio very close to me, and he was working for Stormzy, for example. Stormzy could literally work from everywhere, but is still keen to come to Portobello and have his music made here.
Yeah.
Is something related to, do you believe it's also something related to, again, about like vibes, energy, soul, or is it just about reputation, about...
Community, I think, is what you're hitting
Community.
on. Yeah. Especially with someone like Stormzy, I think his whole... he's such a good person for the community. Like, he gives, because he knows that the community gave him a lot as well. And I think without that, he wouldn't have made it. And of course, like, he's doing very, very well. And I suppose he doesn't need to be here, but
He doesn't really.
yeah,
I don't think so.
yeah, but why wouldn't he be? Yeah, there's definitely still a hub of creatives here. This road, and this area, there are loads of artists, loads of creatives, and you can, beyond music as well, and you can tell that, and it's nice to be around that, because the best way to be successful in a creative environment is to constantly learn from others and to constantly collaborate, and also to be creative. You need to look beyond. So I'm in music. I've got to look beyond music to fuel creativity inside of me. So like going to museums, going to art galleries, all of that feeds, inspiration and different emotions and stirs different things inside of us, and things I might learn. It could even be that, like, I read a history book and something I learn about history will just somehow, influence the way that I create. And I think London is amazing for that, because it has so much to offer, and the museums are free.
Yes, so true.
I mean, you go to the British Museum, they force you to a counter and say, will you give us money? And I still say no. But yeah, like, I went to New York recently, and I went to some of the museums there, and they're incredible. But you do have to pay for them.
You have to pay for them.
Yeah.
Is it? Same in Italy.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. It's unbelievable. When my mum came over last time, she was like, is this free? Yeah, it's free.
Yeah. And that's how I survived in London. I used to live in Earl's Court, and I used to pretty much every day, or every weekend at least, every day is a bit stretch, walk over to the Natural History Museum. I love that building, and I didn't have a garden, so I'd just go and sit in the garden at the Natural History Museum. And that was how I found peace. That was how I found inspiration and the balance. Yeah. If I was living in a small town and I didn't have all of that opportunity around me, I think it would be a different story. Not to say it's right or wrong, it's just different, right? I very much needed London, and London has given me a lot, and I'm thankful for it. I'm not giving it a dime back, though. It's taken enough from me.
No, it's a great story to hear. The thing is, like, when you moved to London, right? So from the very beginning, how much effort you make at the beginning to integrate in London? Because I'm an expert, right? I'm from Italy.
Yeah.
And when I moved here, I know what's the I don't want to call it stereotype of an Italian, right? You from outside London, what's the stereotype of someone moving from outside London and in a city? How do you feel? How you felt back then?
Yeah, I think I had more stereotypes about people who were born in London. So, like, I've got a few friends who were born and raised here, and you can tell when they visit other places that when they can't get that coffee at 6 a.m. from the cafe or that avocado on toast, you're like, or when you go on the tube with them, they're so unbelievably aggressive.
Really, aren't they?
Yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, the tube's gone, or yeah, you can go past. I'm like so chill, whereas they grew up here, so it's very much like everyone will die around them for them to get home or to wherever they need to be. But I think I moved, and what helped was having friends here. I moved in with a friend. I've never not lived with a friend, or now my partner. And yeah, without that, I really would have struggled, I think, because I had that support system around me. And it was one of those things where it was very much like, if my best mates weren't in London yet, it was how we were going to get them there soon. Were your friends involved in working in music as well?
No. You were the only one?
Yeah.
You were the only one?
Yeah.
Did your friend believe in you?
Yeah. I mean, we all, I'm not, if they didn't tell me. Which is the key. Sometimes, what I've learned recently is sometimes you don't always have to tell the truth. You're not lying if you're not saying anything.
So true. You omit things.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy.
Yeah. So yeah, they were very supportive, and that showed in the fact that there were months where I couldn't like pay rent, and whatever it might be, but they weren't kicking me out. They weren't knocking at the door telling me to go get a job somewhere else. They understood the struggle I was going through, and they were willing to kind of sit with me until I could make it work.
That's very impressive, honestly.
Yeah. I
don't know many people who do the same.
Yeah. Honestly, mate, I'm just so lucky.
You feel lucky. You feel like nowadays.
I always have felt lucky. It's very much, even in the low moments, it's the low moments always had like, well, look how lucky you've been, and that's kind of what got me through.
Do you have a mantra that you say to yourself every single day, or you have like a little thing that you do when you feel like down?
Yeah, I don't think I have a mantra. I used to listen to music, but to kind of pick my spirits up. I think it's coffee. Coffee helps. No, I think it is very much like I tell my friends everything, and being able to pick up the phone, call them, and I'll just blah, 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 and they'll listen to my anxiety, and then it's all good again.
That's great.
Yeah.
I say my things to my clients, which is the same basically. But anyway, yeah, it's such a. That's what I was considering as a thing, is something that you don't really realize up until you don't talk deep to a person. How unique the story of each one is. And through this, I want to make sure everyone understands that the meaning of that is not the haircut I'm doing right now. It's just the message I want to send to people. Just meet people. Just, you know what I mean? Stop, talk to someone. It may be more interesting than you think.
Yeah.
Don't stop from, from the outside, it's just like a container. And what would you say to any like beginner, any young boy or girl who wants to start this career in music? What would be your like recommendation, your be aware of, your triangle?
I have to be really careful with this because I've had people ask me similar things in the past, and I go, oh, and this thing, and this, and if you want to do this, and the way, I would say failure is a wonderful thing to learn from, and you really shouldn't be afraid of messing up. I've had moments where I've been in environments that I found quite intimidating. I've ended up doing something, blown a fuse, the whole thing shuts down, and you're like, okay, this could be the end of it for me. But it's very much like, try many things out. Don't worry about failing yourself as well. So like, if you have a dream and you feel like this is the route that you want to go down, if you do it and then you find out you don't like it, that's okay. I've done that many times. You will find it if you're passionate enough about the sector, let's say it's music, whatever industry it will be, you'll find something that works for you, and you can turn a passion, a dream into reality and into something that's sustainable.
That's a good one, honestly. Really. Very simple. Direct, simple. Don't really.
Good. I didn't go, blah.
Do not fuck around.
Yeah.
Simple. Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm not, this is also, I think, you're a mature person. You have your experience in life.
Yeah.
After a while, you realize that your recommendations are the ones that so often people want to hear, but probably not.
Yeah.
So trying to make it simple. That's what I believe as well.
Yeah.
If I could control everybody, that would be amazing. But anyway, what about coming back to music, obviously?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys understood this is the topic of the day.
Oh, music. Should have told them, really, shouldn't you?
Yeah, I forgot, man. Coming back to it, nowadays, you say it's much easier to put a track, make music, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's rap on it, let's sing on that, let's do a short video on that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is gonna be the end of creating music in a very like simple way? And what's the evolution?
Right. Do you mean like
your idea
with the progression of technology and where all that's going, or
mainly yes, but also how now today I can go on Google, right? AI making music or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can make how much of yourself is in that.
Yeah.
Because technology is okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen, everything.
Yeah.
But how much of yourself? How many hours have you spent learning playing drum?
Right.
How many hours have you spent like trying to understand why this thing doesn't work for you?
Yeah.
This is gonna be gone. Is this coming back again? What do you think?
It's very much a hot topic. I think there was a lot of conversations about that sort of stuff when I was in Universal as well, and what that meant for a publisher, what it meant for a songwriter. My ethos on it, and I remember watching, I can't remember who it was. I'd love to quote someone here, but can't remember the name, can't remember where I saw it. But he had a very good take on it, which was an example being artists, when you go back far enough, used to try and, not all of them obviously, but used to try and paint images of people that looked so incredibly lifelike. And that was the sort of focus. We didn't have technology of a camera to do that. When the cameras came out, all of a sudden the artists sort of themes and I forget what you call them now, just where art went, basically turned into surrealism, into cubism, into things that were not real, things that weren't hyper-real, because the camera did that. And I think something similar might happen as AI progresses. It's basically a really optimistic look on what could potentially be a new age of creativity in human nature and humankind, because we're going to be forced into that. If something can do something so incredibly well, better than us, what are we going to do to adapt? We're very good at survival. We've kind of proven that, right? And I think that's a good way to look at it. It's the way I want to look at it as well. Of course, it could turn into Terminator and AI kills us all, but I don't think it's that. And the other thing that I look at it as is AI has been in our life for ages. It's just progressing a bit quicker now.
Sure.
This camera, for instance, it's got autofocus on it. That's AI. When I'm doing music, I've got certain things that will be like, rather than me programming reverb of like a big church, I'm clicking something that has already learned and been programmed what a big church is. And if I turn this dial and I change the size of it in a small way, that's AI, isn't it? I mean,
Definitely.
It's always been there, and it's something that I think we can use to make things quicker, but also it helps us be creative. It stops us getting bogged down in the areas that might not necessarily need our time, and allows us to go, oh, AI can do that really quickly. It's something that doesn't need my input in. And that can give all this headspace and room for me to be creative in these other areas.
So true.
And then you get the starting point as well, where a lot of music AI, the AI companies are trying to sell it like it's creative starters. So rather than like make a new song, what it's doing is giving you little jump starters and little building blocks to go, here's a start of an idea, or here's something that can help you get going, whether it's like, let's do a pop track or a R&B track, whatever it might be. So it can be helpful. When it comes to ownership of music,
this is a big question.
it's a big question.
You said it. You asked the question of yourself.
Yeah, that one is very much still in the air, and I pray to God that the big publishers, the big record labels globally make the right choice, because they lost the battle with who was it? It was Napster, right? They lost that battle of free digital music, and the music industry suffered a lot, like financially suffered a lot as well. This one really affects everyone, once again, who from the bottom of the chain, from a musician, from a composer, from an artist, all the way to the top of, a big publisher label. The way that AI would make music is it's got to be fed something. It's got to be fed information. So for it to make convincing pop music, it's got to be fed really good pop music, and a lot of it. And it's got to learn what we are listening to, what we find interesting. And from all of that, it will be able to kind of regurgitate and change things and manipulate things and make it new. In a way, that's how we learn. Somebody who's got knowledge teaches us, so they tell us something, we learn. That's what it's doing. But actually, this is ownership. And
what if this AI learns the worst ever? If you go, for example, on ChatGPT, right, which is the simplest, the one that you can access easy for free.
Yeah.
Most of the times you have the most misleading information on anybody you search on in the worst English ever, and as well. So how do you think our taste is gonna, what I mean? It's like you are voting for AI music and human crafted music.
Yeah.
How people's taste is getting along with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
do you think we still have a choice?
You're asking a question about, I guess, soul, whether something has humanity in it, whether it's got something real in it, right? I think we always will accept and put up with with something that doesn't quite work or isn't the best thing in the world, but we also will need the stuff that is better than that. And ultimately, AI can do whatever it wants. I'm not gonna mess with it. However, we're the ones that decide whether we like it or not, right? Whether we're happy with it. All we can do is feed it stuff that we say, that works, we like that doesn't work. And it'll learn eventually what works. But the moment we stop saying yes to it is the moment that it won't become any good. But also it's limited. It will only go as far as we give it. So if it's succeeding and it's creating something that is, it works, it might not be new, it might not be original, but it works. Is it going to create something original? I don't think it ever could. We've got to feed it originality for it to create originality. So it will always need a human take, I think. That's great. That's a great point. Also, if you think about on the side, there's many now AI based, browsers, search engines like Google has one. Yeah. Bing has the best one, as far as I know. They work well. You ask for an image, but baby, they collected so many data from other people, and also art is included to that. Everyone is involved, and then maybe someone's art and music and videos in the future can shine thanks to AI and probably wasn't known before. But this is all related to our consideration. It's all about how we feel about AI as a main thing. Together with music, probably, when house music was out, people were still listening to something else, and probably when AI is going to be like literally mainstream, people still going to live their life just walking. Probably if you shut down a phone, you forget about everything and you don't really rely and relate. You're not even responsible for what's happening in the world if you're not part of it. Yeah. On technology and stuff. Yeah. So I believe, it's also how much importance we give to things that make it different. Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, the things would have been already like super different from the 2000 with the big changes that we had in the world. Yeah. I mean, you could relate it to it could be, we could enjoy AI music, we could enjoy AI art, and that we could enjoy it in the same way that we enjoy a McDonald's burger. Same. But is it a gourmet burger? No. We go to the people who make gourmet burgers for the gourmet burgers. You see that McDonald's, the AI right now is like McDonald's. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. No, you just imagine, say, no. Yeah. You said nothing. No, I often describe Taylor Swift as McDonald's. Oh God. Oh. Snipers everywhere. Oh God. They're going to camp outside here as well. Where is it? My name's not going on. Taylor Swift, I don't know if anyone's following her, but she's running the music industry at the moment. She's got complete control. There we go. Now you're an expert, right? Let's talk about this. Why is she good?
And by the way, I'm probably never.
What do you mean by good?
No. She's a good businesswoman.
Yeah. Well, I think she's learned loads, right? And she's got the right people around her now. She's been scorned by bad deals and all that kind of stuff. But it's the power of money, because it's not that she's putting. It's not like she's waving money around. It's not that. It's more that. I think big labels like Universal know that she generates a hell of a lot of money because she's so unbelievably popular. And it's a corporate business. So if something's popular and it's working and they want to do something, you've got to give them a platform for that. You kind of got to trust in that process that they know what they're doing, right? And I think that's why she knows, they know, and people know that the choices she makes will probably result in good finances.
So it's all about money.
I think so. I always say every road leads to capitalism.
Oh, yes. Not Rome anymore. Oh, mamma mia.
What did the Romans ever do for us? No, sorry.
yeah.
That's a bad.
This is going to be my French Italian. They're going to say something, I'm telling you. But anyway, it's something that happened to many big ones, like probably Michael Jackson was diving into it, was so happy about being popular. I don't want, next one in a very different way, Justin Bieber, which is not related to, I don't want to fake the...
No.
But, in the same way, it was like the opposite.
Yeah.
It's still very, like, I would say traumatized about his success, which is something...
Yeah.
Give it to me, please. Like, it comes with loads of, nice houses in Miami Beach. I'm very happy. But anyway, Taylor Swift seems to handle it very well. Seems to be everywhere.
We never know what's going on behind closed doors, do we? But it's very much you've got to play the game sometimes when you're in it. I very much created my career to sort of stay away from many things like that, because it's all too
and you
rich.
had chances.
It's not that necessarily that I had chances, but it could have been something that I drove towards, that I wanted. But it's all too rich for me. I very much like the quieter life. I like being my own little guy and my own little thing. I'm an outgoing introvert, so ultimately I just want to be home. I don't want to have anyone, bothering me.
Any other recommendation they could give people in terms of not even of someone who wants to start this job, but of people who wants to listen to music in your world, not in the stream music, Well,
I would just challenge people to turn on the TV, turn on any channel, and have a listen to the music that's on there, because you probably don't notice that there's music on it, because it exists just to be a function, to be a purpose. You'll be watching, I don't know, location, and it's got some sort of pizzicato strings in the background or some sort of whimsical orchestral thing. That, for me, is magical, all of that stuff, because it works so unbelievably well. And I like it. I'm not saying that I turn on Spotify and listen to that music, because I don't, but I like it in that context. And see every moment in the world that has something that maybe you've not thought about. Another thing I do is I stop and I look up at the tops of buildings and go, wow, look at those angles. No one talks about how nice that is up there. It's just noticing the little things, I think.
Looking at the sky sometimes.
Yeah.
So true. Do we want to style your hair?
If you've got any gel or anything, we can.
Yeah, we're going to use something.
It's almost gone, isn't it, this blonde?
Yeah.
Almost.
Oh, mamma mia. So I'm going to be using a bit of sea salt spray first.
Yep.
Yeah. So I can dry it in. It's going to give it a nice texture. Then just a tiny bit of styling powder. Just a bit of this. And there we go. For the haircut lovers. There we go. Just a bit of texture. We're gonna just keep it down as it is.
Nice.
You still have a bit of blonde, which I like, but you don't like
No,
it.
I like.
But you're down with that.
It's I'm just not going to do it again. Yeah.
Oh yeah, not anymore.
No. Well, it's just hard work.
It's so true.
But this is my boy band era. Yeah.
Still there. It comes from here. Then it
Yeah,
finishes over
I've
there.
got the tips.
And then thank you very much for your presence here.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm
Thanks
glad
for
to
having
have
me.
a chat with you. And
Always keep on
I'll see you
going 'cause
soon.
you are your future.